Hello, hello. Hey
Hello.
there. So, welcome to Containers from the Couch. For those watching us today, you may see a new face here, and it's not just mine, but it's Peng Hao, who is I won't do too much of an intro because I want to let him introduce himself. But he's doing some really cool things on the AWS Copilot team. So, Peng Hao, why don't you really quick just do a quick intro and say hello to our beautiful audience?
Thanks, Adam. So I'm Peng Hao, and I'm on ECS DevX team. And right now I'm just working on Copilot. Nice to meet you all.
So, we've done quite a few shows on Copilot, and today we're going to use Copilot as a tool for ECS Exec, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But we're also what we're going to do is we're going to demo how to use ECS Exec. What is ECS Exec? We'll talk a little bit about it, and we'll demo it in two ways. So one will basically use ECS Exec to interact with a container running on AWS Fargate. So if you're familiar with Fargate, that is basically a serverless abstraction way of running your containers in AWS. So you don't manage the underlying virtual machines, patching, maintaining those, securing those instances. You don't have to think about that with Fargate. So one of the big asks from our customers prior to ECS Exec being released was, hey, there are times where I need to actually enter the container to do some troubleshooting. And, generally, in this space, when we talk about running containers, when we're running them in production, one thing we generally advise is you shouldn't be doing that, right? You shouldn't be just execing into your containers, running arbitrary commands all the time. Frankly, it's not a great practice because, of course, you can do anything in that container and you could open up the doors to maybe potential bad things happening. So with ECS Exec, though, of course, there's going to be the time where something goes wrong and you have to just get in there. Logging, metrics, everything you have is good, but you need to just get in there and see what's going on. So we have a really cool demo that Peng Hao built, which is going to basically, I won't give away too much, but we're going to exec into a Fargate container and we're going to interact with a little database and do some cool stuff. So prior to that, maybe let's start with, well, first of all, hellos. So, hey, why is Bob not allowed? And good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to all the different time zones that are watching us. We always appreciate you. Okay, so first let's talk about ECS Exec. I kind of did a little brief overview on it, but I'm going to go to my screen share here and let's just talk through what that looks like. So I don't have Brent today, so I'm relying on my technical expertise, which is not as strong as his when it comes to this. So this is our documentation page for ECS Exec. So essentially, let's see, I'll link it here so you can see it in the video. But ECS Exec is a way to interact with your containers without the need to open up ports, enable SSH. You don't have to think about those things anymore. So in the past, prior to us releasing this feature, if you needed to access a container that was running on EC2, remember with Fargate, that wasn't even possible prior to this release. You'd have to enable SSH, which means you as the person or team managing this environment have to control SSH keys. You have to think about securing them, rotating them. Also, you have to think about, opening up ports to your EC2 instance, right? Opening up SSH, which just frankly, it opens the door for just someone to try to start trouble. And aside from all that, you also have to, when you have SSH enabled on your servers, someone's actually accessing that server and has access to the underlying host. So now I have to think about securing the host, securing my users, ensuring that they can only do what they need to do. when getting in there. So there's a lot of complexity and a lot of thought that goes into that. So with ECS Exec, there's no more worry about that. So you don't enable SSH. You don't have to open up port 22 to the world or to your corporate VPN or your corporate network. All the communication behind the scenes is done through AWS SSM. And that's all documented here in our documentation. But essentially, when you enable ECS Exec for your tasks, behind the scenes, the ECS is actually bind mounting the SSM agent and all of the components needed to make sure that when you want to exec in, that the packages are there, the software is running, without you having to configure that in your container image prior to deploying it. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that, Peng Hao? I kind of just dumped everything.
Yeah. In order to enable this feature, actually, you need to, if you use run task API, then you need to specify to enable this feature. If you run it through the service, then when you create the service, you need to enable this feature so that the container will have the SSM agent up before you running the execute command to SSH into your container.
That's a great point. Yeah. So if you had a task running today and you didn't enable ECS Exec when you launch that task, you wouldn't be able to exec into it. So at the next task launch, you have to make sure that you have the proper IAM role policy set up. It's attached to your task to ensure that it can talk with SSM and so on. So that documentation that I linked here, check it out. And during my demo, I'll also show off some of the, I'll show you some of the different things you have to do to get it enabled. So with all that said, I just did a lot of talking, and frankly, we're 8 minutes in, and it's too much talking. Let's get into a demo. So Peng Hao, we'll start with you. Why don't you talk about what you're going to demo today and show us how cool it's going to be?
Okay, so first of all, let's give a little bit background knowledge about Copilot. So Copilot is a open source command line interface that makes it easy for developers to build, release, and operate production-ready containerized application on Amazon ECS and AWS Fargate. So we're dedicated to provide a superb end-to-end experience for our new and current ECS customers. Like, you can get your application deployed and manage them with ease. In the meanwhile, we also make it possible for you to extend or customize your application infrastructure. So let's get started with an example where we have a web application, web application, and we want to have it talk with a RDS Aurora database. So what are we gonna do?
So Peng Hao, I just want to add, I think, to put it simply, when it comes to when you want to run containers in AWS, no matter what, there's things you have to think about when deploying your containers. If you're using ECS, right, you have to think about just getting a cluster, setting up IAM roles, policies, building a load balancer if you're going to have a load balanced web service. Copilot simplifies all of that. And I think personally, my favorite part about Copilot is the guided experience, which makes it even simpler. So when you start, Copilot walks you through by asking you a couple of questions to understand what type of workload you're deploying, and then Copilot does the rest. So
yes, exactly.
It gives me the warm and fuzzies inside. So
yep. So let's start with Copilot app init. So basically, this command will create a Copilot application. So application can consist of multiple microservices. It's a collection of them. So let's create one. So for simplicity, I already create those resources. So we have an application named Couch Demo. And then after that, we're gonna create a service. Remember, we want to create a like a web service that can talk with the database. So we can call the Copilot service init. So we're gonna choose this one, and then we're gonna just name it hello. So this service has already been created, so this should take real quick. I'm gonna just use the local Docker file. What this application do is, what this service do is actually just gonna grab information from the database and then show it on the, on the page. So let's take a look at what we have in the manifest.
And so Copilot, by the way, you initialized your service. It asks you what type of service do you want, how do you want to name it, and then it actually looks through your directory and says, is this the Docker file you want to use to deploy your container, or to build your container image? If not, you can also define where it is. So again, it's doing a lot of the work for you. You just have to answer some questions.
Yeah. Normally we'll ask you more, but it's just for simplicity, I already created those resources, so it won't like ask me those questions again.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So here's the manifest file. So the manifest actually contains almost all the configuration that you can configure for your service, like the image location. You can, like Adam put, you can either put the local file, or you can use your own by specifying there's a location field that you can specify. And then we have a CPU and memory configuration for it, and the count is this one just means how many copies, like how many tasks do you want to run in the service. And this is important. So exec should by default, when you create a service, will put this line by default. But if you don't want to get the exec enabled in your service, then feel free to get rid of this line or just specify this one to be false.
So that's it.
Yeah.
So with Copilot, to enable exec, I literally just say exec true. That's it.
Yep, that's it.
Wow.
And then in order to deploy the service, we'll have environment. So environment actually means the stage of your service. Like you can deploy your service into the test environment or prod environment with some, different configuration. Like you can specify the override here in your manifest. For example, like tasks you want to run 2 copies, but the prod maybe you want to run 6 or more, or have auto scaling in them. It's also possible. And then after that, I'm gonna show you how to create a Aurora database. It's actually an add-on in Copilot world. So if you do Copilot storage init, you'll create a under the hood, it will create a CloudFormation template. And then when you deploy your service, it will be deployed as an add-on stack, as a nested stack. And then we'll handle all the things that you need to make your service or make your container talk with the database.
So basically, again, Copilot's just simplifying a lot of the complexities with building your database. Then, if you need IAM roles or if you need security group rules, it's handling all of that for you.
Yes.
And so here, with the storage in it, there's the 3 options: DynamoDB, S3, Aurora Serverless. This is just, super cool.
Yep. I'm gonna demo later. Like you can, without the access. For example, we have a security group controlling the inbound traffic through the database. So actually, it's not possible for you to talk with the database without executing into the specific container.
Nice. Very cool.
So what would you like to name this database? I'm just gonna name it with storage, my storage. And then we're gonna use PostgreSQL. And then what would you like to name your initial database? Just a random name initdb. Okay, so we've created this before, so it will tells me like this YAML file, this CloudFormation template file already exists. But like if I didn't create it before, it will prompt me to like it will output the secret name that I need to inject into my code in order to do this. I'm gonna show you real quick how we're gonna use that in our service. So this is my the front end service. We can get the secret from here, and then all the information here to connect to the database, and the web page will just show the content of this table.
And so, it's common in containerized, workloads to, source secrets from environment variables. Can you tell me how that, so I saw you were grabbing it from an environment variable.
Yeah.
How does that get set up?
So I'm gonna show you later because I need to deploy my service so that we can have that secret, right? But to answer your question, it's actually stored in a secret manager. So and the ECS will handle all about this if you just inject into the ECS. So it will allows the container to get the secret from the secret manager. It's automatically handled by ECS.
That's fantastic. And Copilot. So when Copilot builds the database, does it automatically give me that secret as an environment variable?
Yep. Like I said, the database, the Aurora database, is created as a nested stack, and then it will output the secret as an output, and then in the main stack, which is the service stack, we'll reference that when we create a service.
Fantastic.
We'll reference the output. So here we're gonna just deploy the service. We're gonna just do service deploy to deploy the service to the we need to create this environment first. Sorry about that. So as I put before, environment is actually means the stage of your service. So we're gonna just create a test environment with a profile, and I'm gonna just use the default setting.
And by the way, I'm sorry, go on.
Yeah, since this environment has been created before, so it should take real quick, but normally it would take about 5 to 6 minutes to create that environment. It consists of the VPC and then the load balancer, but it won't create a load balancer unless you have a real web load balance web application web service deployed. So it's the load balancer will be deployed when you deploy your service instead of creating the environment.
That makes sense. So you're not sitting around paying for idle resources being unused.
$16 a month.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say, so, we're kind of going through, maybe moving a little fast on some of these Copilot things. We have other shows. If you just go to youtube.com/containers from the couch, we have a lot of shows where we actually dive really deep into Copilot and go through it. So just wanted to share that as well.
Okay, so since I've already deployed my application, my service to the environment, so now I can do Copilot service show to get the information of my service. Like Adam, you can see the secrets here. We have a my storage secret. That's the output of the like the nested stack, which contains the Aurora database. So it will output the secret here, and then in your service code, you can just reference that. This will actually show up when you do the storage in it, but since I've already done the storage in it before, it doesn't output that. But typically, this secret name will be print on the screen and prompt you to use that in your code.
And also notice, though, that it's value from. So ECS has native integrations with Secrets Manager and SSM Parameter Store. So what we're doing here is we're not exposing that secret in plain text to your in your task definition. So you don't have to worry if someone runs Copilot service show, like you just did, then I'm going to be able to just see this secret in plain text. I'd have to actually have access to Secrets Manager to see that. So
Yes.
just, another, again, little thing, but this is, thinking security first.
Yep. And then we can try to, like I said before, we can try to get connected to the database that we created before to see if it works. For example, if I just do PSQL and then with the whole endpoint name and then the port number and the username, password, and DB name, and then the password, I'm just gonna just type the password here. We'll reject the connection actually because it's not like because we are not in the container yet. So this is controlled by the security group. It takes a little bit of while, but
yeah, it'll time out eventually here. And while we're waiting, there was just a question from Ramya Raj. How is ECS different from EKS? How do they compare in terms of running apps? Are there specific apps that are more suited to run on ECS? So really, I think it just comes down to the flavor of CLI and how do you prefer deploying your applications and deploying your containers. They're both container orchestrators that can run at high scale. It just depends on your preferences. If you're familiar with Kubernetes, just using Kubernetes and Kubernetes terminologies and the APIs, EKS makes a lot of sense. If you're more familiar with AWS APIs and you want to stay more native in the AWS ecosystem by just using AWS APIs and so on, ECS makes a lot of sense. So both highly performant, just depends on the use case and what you prefer.
Okay. We're going to not wait for it. We're going to kill it. And then let's take a look at the website. So, okay, hello world. And if you put I already put some data into the database.
Maybe zoom in a little bit.
Okay, sure.
Perfect.
Students.
And then while you're waiting on that, another question came in from Venu. And forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Can we use this Copilot in production workloads? Absolutely.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, Copilot was GA'd. When did we GA Copilot?
Last December. Last November.
Yeah, but you go ahead and answer the question, Pengo, please.
Yeah, you can definitely use Copilot in production. Like we have right now, we already have a lot of customers using Copilot, like hosting their website or etc. Like over 100 of them. So like 100 of stack as far as I know. But yes, yeah, the quick answer is yes.
Yeah, definitely. And look, we're building it with good practices in place. So I would say if you're new to ECS or you're even relatively new to containers, Copilot is going to help you get a production ready workload up and running in minutes. And I know I say that, but test it yourself. You'll see what I'm saying when you actually deploy it on your own.
Thanks. So yeah. So the website, so the web application is just gonna grab the data from database and show it in this web page. So I'm just gonna go ahead to execute into the container. Let's say if it just has all the students' name here, right? Let's say if we want to split the name into the first name and the last name, create 2 extra columns for that. Then we're gonna just go to the container. For example, like we can do Copilot Service Exec. Okay, so looks like we need to have the Session Manager plugin installed in order to do this. That's it. that's expected because you need a plugin in order to do the execute command. That's also required if you use AWS CLI instead of Copilot. But Copilot will help you to install the plugin instead of going to the website and follow the tutorial. Copilot will do it within just one click.
Again, that guided experience where you're missing something, Copilot's going to catch it and help you out.
Yep.
So
okay,
cool.
it's installed, and then we're already in the container. So let's do ls, and then it will show the list of all the files. And then, of course, we can do the PSQL thing to get ourselves connect to the database. Okay, cool. This works. And then let's take a look at what we have. We have this table, and then we have user ID and then name. So we can do this to create a first name column, and then last name column. And then we can update the table like this. Okay, let's take a look at the website again. Boom.
Nice.
So this is how we can do to execute into the container and then add some data or modify the table. Yeah.
So obviously I feel like, again, we should just say, like, if you're running in a production environment, realistically, you shouldn't be, modifying your database on the fly.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's just maybe for debugging, or if you really want to, make some change. But apparently that's not very typical, and you should be careful about the role that you assign to have the permission to do this.
Yeah. So, just things to, be careful. Obviously, this should be used just for troubleshooting purposes. If you have any type of, mutations on the database, let's add them to your pipelines and let's automate that. So,
okay, I noticed a question. Can we push the container logs? Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, by default, we will just push our log to the CloudWatch. I can show you here. For example, if I can quit this and then exit the session, and then if we do Copilot service logs, it will show us all the logs of this service, like the exact log along with the service log itself. But if you want to configure to push to the Elasticsearch, I'm not sure if you are familiar with FireLens, but Copilot actually integrates with FireLens. Like you can have configure in your manifest, so that you can use FireLens to push your log to S3 or Elasticsearch or even Datadog if you like. Please visit our website. We have a page for that.
yes, I'm actually finding that right now. So here
Thanks.
we have on sidecars.
Yes, it's on the sidecars.
Perfect. So yeah, quick answer is yes. That's awesome. So let's see. Another question came in. So how easy is it to run a query on your DB from the CLI? Well, so just remember, it all depends on access and all that. But in this instance, this front end service talks to the backend Aurora serverless database. So Peng Hao was able to run his queries, modify the database, and do what he needed to do.
Yeah. So I think that's it for my demo. To be honest, the execute command itself, like Copilot execute, it's very similar to the real, like if you use AWS CLI, you do execute command. It's pretty much like it, but again, like Adam will show you how to do exactly in EC2 instance without Copilot. The real trouble is when is how you configure those IAM role and the other setup instead of the execute command, the API itself.
Yeah.
So I'll hand it over to Adam to show us how to do the EC2.
Awesome. Thank you. That was a really, really awesome demo. Mine's not as cool, but oh boy, this got super big. Okay. Let's bring it in a little bit. Okay. So I'd like to say, Copilot is really the easy way. It's just an easy button. You get your containers deployed. If you want to exec into them, you can enable exec in your manifest, and boom, you're ready to go. So for use cases that are maybe a little more, I don't even want to say advanced, that are just different, where you want to run EC2, and there's many reasons, some reasons why customers want to run their containers using EC2 instead of Fargate. But frankly, I'd love to have a conversation because, Fargate is really incredible. But so in this instance, there are some prerequisites that you have to have in place. So one thing that we didn't mention was the ability to log commands that are actually run on the container using exec. So because the integration is built in with SSM has the ability to actually log all the commands that whoever it was that exec into that container ran, and so you can log them to CloudWatch logs, or you can log them to an S3 bucket. So from a security perspective, I've said 100 times today, really exec only when you absolutely need to. Don't make it just a regular practice. But if somehow you want to have controls, you use IAM to control who can exec into a container and who can't. But also, if you want to have the ability to see what that person ran when they were on the container, you can do that as well. So I first want to give a shout out to Pahud. If you're not familiar with Pahud, he is a developer advocate in Asia Pacific region, and he just does the most amazing stuff with CDK, and he's just anytime there's a new feature in ECS or EKS, Pahud the next day has a video and a whole walkthrough on how to do it. He's so amazing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'll post this in here. So I kind of built off of what he did, and basically, so what I did was there's some prerequisites if you want to enable logging. So I created a KMS key. I created an S3 bucket as well as a log group. So when we enable exec, we have to enable at the cluster level as well. So what I did at the cluster level was I enabled the log configuration to log to that S3 bucket as well as that CloudWatch logs group, and to use this KMS key to encrypt.
To add more context about that, so if you don't add any configuration at the cluster level, then you won't get any log for it. For example, it just doesn't push your log to anywhere unless you specify the exact command configuration in the cluster level.
Perfect. Great point. Thank you. And so you can see here with the CDK, I'm just creating an ECS cluster. And one of the things that I really love about the CDK is outside of the high level constructs that are available that build a lot of the boilerplate for you, there are times when maybe there's a new feature that was released that's available in CloudFormation, but it's not necessarily available in the CDK yet. So I'm just simply adding an override, which will basically, behind the scenes, it's going to update the CloudFormation template to add these particular keys to my cluster CloudFormation configuration. So And I just created a cluster with some EC2 capacity. And another thing here is the policy statement. So you have to, at your task level, okay, so when you create a service or you launch a task, if you want to interact with, if you want to use ECS Exec, you have to have these particular actions enabled, available in you have to have an IAM policy attached to your task. So essentially, these are the 4 actions that you need to have added to your task role. And so we create a policy and then we actually attach it to our task role somewhere down here, right here. So we actually attach that task role. And then lastly, I'm just creating a service. I'm just creating a simple load balanced web service. And I hate that I'm doing this, but it's just a simple Nginx demo. I didn't integrate the cool demo that Peng Hao built, but anyways. One last thing. So at the service level, so when I actually create this service and the task definition, I need to have this enable execute command set to true. So similar to Copilot, where if you want to enable ECS Exec, you have to just set that to true in the definition there. Okay, so that's all the boring stuff. So I have it deployed. Now, one thing you'll notice is I'm adding my cluster capacity, my EC2 capacity, but I do not have SSH enabled. So I've already deployed this environment. That is like crazy large. Let me zoom out really quick here. And this always is oh yeah, the font size is super crazy. Let's see how that looks. Much better. Okay. So I've built my environment. So you see I run a CDK diff. We'll see it already exists. So I have my ECS cluster. And you can see here I have an ECS service. It has 1 task running. So we can drill down in the tasks. I can see here's my task. It's running, my Nginx image. Very basic. Nothing fancy here. So let's go to the other thing I want to show is the EC2 instances. So I'm actually going to go back into the previous console here. And I want to just show you. Oh, did I?
No, you didn't.
Skip. Yeah, my bad. So if we go to the ECS instances, you see here's my container instance. Okay, so I'm gonna drill into the instance. Let's actually look in the EC2 console. I just want to show there's no funny business here. I'm not enabling SSH or anything. So these are all internal. None of this is external access to my cluster. Okay, and they're all running in, my cluster is running in a private subnet. I'm sorry, my instance is running in a private subnet. So I can't SSH into it. I can't do anything like that. So I'm going to use the AWS CLI to exec in. Okay, so let's walk through the command. So it's ECS, AWS ECS execute command. I'm setting my region, my cluster name, and then the task that I want to actually exec into. And then the specific container, and then what command do I want to run? So it's all interactive now. So when you execute this command, it's actually going to enter into that container. And I already have the Session Manager plugin installed. And you can see here I am. And we could even, if we wanted to, let's see. So look, I'm in this container, so I don't even have PS installed. Let's do this. Let's do apt-get install him. So I'll modify the Nginx config, and that way we can see, what that looks like. But actually, let's open up. I'm gonna leave the container, and I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna just deploy. Let's get that load balancer output, and then what we'll do is we'll look at the URL. We'll look at the web page, and then we'll edit it in real time. So there it is. So there's our Nginx conf. Let's exec back in. And then, I'm going to just really quickly, there's a couple questions here. So first question is from the Cream Puff. Hello. How do we keep track of what AWS IAM actions map to an ECS feature? So generally in the documentation, so I hope I'm understanding the question correctly. If not, please feel free to clarify, my understanding. But generally, so like for example, this feature, in the documentation, we tell you exactly what's needed. So you can see here, these are the permissions you need. Optionally, here are some additional features you can add to your task definition, and so on. So generally, the documentation specific to this feature should give you what you need to ensure that you have the proper access and permissions. And then can we enable ECS Exec true for already created clusters? So I believe on a cluster, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the answer is yes, because I just look at the CloudFormation documentation for that. Like the interruption is no, so it means that you have no interruption when you change this configuration. So I think you can do that.
Yeah,
but
my understanding
that's just for the log. That's just for the log.
Exactly, but you can't. Right, if you have a service that's a task that's running, you would have to redeploy the task with exec being enabled. You can't exec into a task that existed prior to this feature running. So, okay, wow, super small. So you can see here, though, it's been so long since I don't even know where to go. Where's our page here? Is this the one? And where's the index.html? So yeah. Anyway, so you can see though here I'm in the container. Let's see. Let me just I don't remember where it's been so long. Where the index.html is. Is it var nginx? No. Anyways, this is just me being so outdated with Nginx. So that's it. So everything I've done has been logged to CloudWatch. So I can look at CloudWatch logs. There's also, again, that S3 bucket that has all the activity, all the commands that I ran, all here. So for security perspective, any type of audits, you have all that data accessible to you. And so on. So, oh, cool. Thank you so much, Nick. Yeah. So, oh, the ambiguous title. Okay. Well, that just means I got to get better with titling these videos. But thank you so much. User share Nginx. Oh, my hero. Okay. So let's check in here. Let's see. Oh, you are amazing. So welcome to. Do I have to reload? Everybody coming to my rescue. So that's awesome. Thank you. There you go. So welcome to Containers from the Couch. So I exec into the container. Everyone, thank you. It was right in the nginx.conf. I just missed it because I'm live on the air and I just couldn't read. So there it is. So we were able to demo ECS Exec. You can see there was, with Copilot, it's all built in to the experience. So when you need to, when you want to enable it, it's as simple as just enabling exec to true in your manifest. If you're using CloudFormation, CDK, or Terraform, there's obviously a couple more steps you have to take. You have to make sure you attach the IAM policy to your task role. You need to, if you want logging enabled, you have to set it up at the cluster level, and so on. But as you can see, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. And once you're in, you're in. I didn't SSH into that host. I can't SSH into that host. and everything I did was logged for auditing purposes, and then we're done. So that's about it.
That's
so
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything else, any parting words you have, Peng Hao, that maybe you want to share with the audience?
Yeah. So welcome to the Copilot world. If you want to investigate more, feel free to take a look at maybe like previous video on containers on Couch, or you can go check our Copilot website.
Yes.
I can share the link.
Here, I just posted it.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So, yep, there's the Copilot CLI. Also, youtube.com/containers from the couch. You can get all the details. We have a lot of Copilot videos. Last Halloween, we did a really cool special with Copilot. We deployed the Spooktacular app. It was really fun. We had a good time. So check those out. So, is there a repo for this demo? So, Peng-Hao, do
you mean the Copilot one or the CDK one? The CDK one, I think Adam already posted a link for that. And as for mine, the thing is, it's actually currently a private repo, but I can make it public, and maybe I'll post it on our our doc page.
Cool.
Copilot doc page for that.
And we can also Twitter. So if you have it on Twitter, you can just follow us on Twitter. We'll repost it, and you can get it from there. And then, okay, so I think we'll wrap up. There's one last question. How does it do its magic? So behind the scenes, this is all through SSM. So ECS will bind mount the SSM binaries to your container while it's at runtime, and all the communication is done through SSM. So it's explained a little more in depth in the documentation, which I will post here so everyone can see. But yeah, so that's it. Thank you everybody for joining. We really appreciate you joining in and watching the show. Of course, we have Containers from the Couch content that comes every couple weeks. Some weeks we have more than others, but do follow us on the Twitters, as well as youtube.com/containers from the couch. That's where we'll post a lot of our new content as well. So thanks so much, Peng-Hao, for being here. Thank you for everyone else.
Thank you, Adam, for hosting this.
And cool. We will see everybody real soon.